When I get out of that fire stairwell, that's where I experience the worst 30, 40 seconds of my life. You see the smoke, the fire, paper, furniture, people being pulled out of the other building. Hurts the same today as it did back then. It never goes away. Thank you for having me here in New York today. I know you want to know how it feels to be back in the city. Unsettling, to be honest. The train pulled into Penn Station, and I had this almost out-of-body reaction, because that's how I got to New York on September 11th. I came in on Amtrak from Philadelphia, got off at Penn, took the subway to the World Trade Center. So it was reliving that, without actually reliving it. My body just sensed it, and it was an eerie feeling. I wasn't expecting that. Every time I come back to New York, there's always something that rekindles the trauma and the pain. You can't help it. And it's not the city's fault. It just happens to be where all this went down for me. You want to know what life was like before 9/11? I'm wrapping up a 46-year career in the insurance industry. At that time, I was basically at the peak of my career. Busy raising a family of 4 kids, supporting the household by being aggressive and driven in my job, trying to climb the corporate ladder, financially and professionally. Life was good. I was already a grandfather when this happened because my oldest daughter had a child when she was very young, so I was a grandfather of 1, a father of 4 kids between the ages of 18 and 13. As hectic as you can imagine. Sports, dance classes, all the activities they had to do, plus school. At one point, I worked away from where we lived, and they loved when I'd come home on weekends because I'd bring Domino's pizza on Friday nights. I always said, the way to my kids' hearts is through pizza. Those are the things we did. The Twin Towers especially were basically a hub for the insurance industry. So, it wasn't unusual to be called to a meeting there. At the time, I was a senior vice president for Nationwide Insurance Company in Columbus, Ohio. With that type of role, it was pretty common that you'd come to New York to meet with folks who wanted to discuss insurance possibilities. I didn't want to go to this meeting. I did everything in my power not to come to New York for this meeting, because that Monday I had a chance to go to another insurance event that involves aluminum sticks, about this long little metal heads, little white balls in the grass. I had a chance to go on a golf outing in southern Pennsylvania, but we worked it out, and I eventually accommodated the folks who wanted me there on Tuesday. That was the plan, and that's exactly what I did. I walked into 2 World Trade Center, the South Tower. Security guy gives me a visitor pass. Over to the security desk. Both buildings were identical, 110 stories high. We were going up in the South Tower to the 105th floor, which at that time was the highest occupied level. The 106th was an observation deck. The 107th was windows on the World Restaurant. We were taking these elevators up to 105, the highest occupied office level at that time. We were escorted into an internal conference room where the meeting was supposed to happen. Truly internal. 4 walls, no windows, 1 door. Insurance meetings never start on time. Never have. Never will. 8:30 a.m. was supposed to be the start, and 8:30 came and went. People drinking their Starbucks, talking about kids and soccer and the NFL, anything but insurance. And at 8:42, the lights flickered. Just this electronic flicker of lights. We couldn't see anything. We didn't feel anything. We didn't hear anything. Just this flicker of lights. Almost immediately, a gentleman by the name of Rick Thompson from the corporation we were visiting came into the meeting room. "Hey, there's been an explosion in the North Tower. We need to evacuate." 54 intelligent people, all in the same room, all at the same time, all type A personalities. We all did the same thing. We came from far and wide, Rick. You know, this is New York. Things happen. We just want to have our meeting. Rick did his job. He got everybody out of that room, all 54 of us. I know everybody got out because I was the last guy out. He escorted us to the nearest fire stairwell and told us we were now going to walk down 105 flights of stairs. Oh yeah, what a bunch of happy campers, right? It was kind of interesting. Everybody did the same thing. They all reached to their belt or into their pockets. They were going to pull out their cell phone because we were going to call somebody to complain about not having our meeting. You've got to understand, we had no clue what was happening. Not a clue. Those watching on TV that day knew way more about what was going on outside and inside those buildings than any of us right there. We had no clue. We flip open our phones. We're going to call somebody to complain. No service. No service. The main cell tower for all of Lower Manhattan was on top of the North Tower, the first building to be hit, so cell service was gone. When we got into that fire stairwell, there are signs to the left or right of the doors at each level that say, "If you're in here, don't leave this fire stairwell except at the lobby level." We're at 105 and we start making our way down. We get down to the 91st floor. The 91st floor fire stairwell door is propped open, and everybody in our stairwell is bailing out, going on to the 91st floor. When I get out of that fire stairwell, that's where I experience the worst 30, 40 seconds of my life. I look out the windows to the north, and I see these huge, gaping black holes through the sides of that building. Gray and black billows of smoke pouring out of those holes. Flames redder than any red I'd ever seen before, just licking up the side of the building and beyond the top level. The smoke just black and gray, billowing out. I look through this. It was a crystal clear day in New York that day. The weather couldn't have been more perfect, but I remember looking through that smoke, through that fire, through those black holes, and seeing pieces of the fuselage of a large plane lodged inside the other building. I kept thinking to myself, my God, how did that pilot not see the building? How did he miss? He flew right into it, and in this chaos, I see all of it, the smoke, the fire, paper, furniture, people being pulled out of the other building. Unbelievably gruesome, horrific, and I had that feeling all of us have had sometimes in our lives, that pit in your stomach. I want my mom feeling. I just wanted to go home. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go home. There were people on that 91st floor that day with me who seemed frozen, whether frozen in fear, mesmerized by what they saw, screaming at the top of their lungs, yet seemingly unable to move. I said to myself, I'm getting out of here. I am not staying here. I turned to go back to the fire stairwell and get out. All this was about 30 to 40 seconds. It wasn't that long that it took me to make this decision. When I turned around, there was a guy right behind me who was in the same meeting. His name was Luke Richardson. He worked for Liberty Mutual Insurance Company. Huge guy, big, tall dude, football guy. All-American linebacker at Penn State. When I turned around to quickly go back, I almost knocked him over with my stubby little body because I was in such a hurry. He put his big hands on my shoulders. "What are you going to do, man?" I said. "I'm getting the hell out of here. I can't stay here. What are you going to do?" He said, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but before I go, I'm going to..." And he pointed to the closest restroom. That 2.5, 3-minute delay in his departure cost him his life that day. I got to the top of the fire stairwell, and they're making an announcement over the PA system. The event has been contained to the North Tower. We believe the South Tower is safe. We suggest that if you work in the South Tower, you return to your workstation. If you feel you need to leave, please proceed with caution. If you're a visitor, please proceed with caution. A lot of people ask me, how could they make that announcement? But it made sense. There was a person in charge of building security down at the lobby level, and at this point, there's a cop on one side, a firefighter on the other, looking at this person saying, "You've got maybe 25,000 people in this building. We can't let them out because it's raining concrete, steel, and bodies outside. What are you going to do?" I'm sure this person thought, well, our building's okay. The elevators are still working. Electricity, ventilation systems, everybody stay put until we figure out what's going on. So it did make sense for them to say, hey, stay where you are. Let's figure this out. Who would have thought that within 17 minutes, the same thing would happen to our building? Who would have thought? We got to the 78th floor. The 78th floor in that building, as well as the 44th floor, were known as sky lobbies, second and third lobbies in the buildings, because they couldn't have elevators go straight up 110 floors. The 78th floor sky lobby was just that, another lobby. When we got to that floor, the woman running our meeting is screaming back at me. She wants me to get on the elevator with her. Finally, some of my common sense took over. I thought, no. Buildings stated to be on fire. It wasn't our building at that point, but stay in the stairwell, Matthew. I looked at Janet and kind of politely waved at her and continued my way down the stairwell rather than getting off onto that 78th floor. Arguably the best decision I've made in what is still my life. We were between floors 74 and 72 when the second plane plowed through our building. Through our building, the plane went through our building between floors 77 and 85. We were just a few stories below that strike zone. Never felt anything like that. This fire stairwell, this concrete bunker we're inside, starts shaking so violently back and forth at angles it shouldn't be shaking. The concrete spiderwebbing out, the handrails breaking away from the walls, the steps undulating underneath our feet like waves in the ocean. We feel this heat ball blowing past us. We smell this jet fuel, and this thing's just rocking back and forth and back and forth. It felt like forever. You would think there would be massive pandemonium. There was nothing in that stairwell at that point but stunned silence. Stunned silence. Everybody was going in the same direction. We were all heading down. The 35th floor is where we encountered for the first time the police, the firefighters, paramedics from FDNY, and the Port Authority. Just the looks in their eyes told the whole story. No words, just the looks in their eyes. They knew. They knew they were going up those stairs to try to fight a fire they couldn't beat. They knew they were going up those stairs to try to save lives they probably couldn't save. And they knew they were going up. And they knew they were never coming back. You know, I've been telling this story for 24 years. And I promise myself every time I get to this part, I'm not going to cry. Hurts the same today as it did then. It never goes away. But it's what drives me to tell this story. Story of people who were willing to lay down their lives to save others. It's what they promised to do. To protect, to serve, to save. I just don't know how they could be so brave and strong and heroic. I love each and every one of them for doing what they did, because if it wasn't for them, all of us who survived that day wouldn't be here. The 18th floor, going down. We also encountered a guy who was actually on the 15th floor, but we could hear him on 18 because he had an electronic bullhorn. This guy, who was a security officer, was singing through this megaphone, and he's singing "God Bless America." He doesn't even know all the words. Well, there was a reason for that, but it's okay. He's singing, and he's really bad. I mean, he had a voice only a mother could love. He's singing out loud, but he was doing something he was probably asked to do. Get up there, calm these people down, make them laugh a little. He had to know with this terrible singing, he was making people laugh and getting them out of the building. I always compared it to the musicians on the deck of the Titanic, right? Go up there, play music, keep them calm, get them off the boat. This is what this guy was doing. He happened to be the guy in charge of security for Morgan Stanley in the North Tower. He'd evacuated all his floors. He came over to the South Tower. He asked the firefighters if he could help. They told him to do exactly what I just described. I wonder how many lives that man saved that day while giving up his own. He never got out. None of them got out. When we got down to the lobby level and out of the fire stairwell, I'm looking through these arching glass windows, left and right. I'm seeing crumbled concrete, twisted steel, red blotches on the ground, and I knew what those red markings were. They couldn't let us out at ground level because it was raining concrete, steel, and bodies. They escorted us down into the concourse level of the Trade Center complex. That's the first time we had the chance to encounter people in real need. Gaping wounds, missing limbs, real blood and guts. Human nature makes you want to reach out, makes you want to help, and I couldn't that day. The reason I couldn't was because there were so many cops, firefighters, paramedics there to aid and assist these people. I've never seen at one place in time such an outpouring of caring and concern and love. That's what this was, this day, an outpouring of love. The escalators that took you up to ground level were no longer escalating. They were steps at this point, back and forth in what they call switchback fashion to get to street level. I'm about halfway up, and I hear my name. Matthew! 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 I turn around, look back, see my friend David Martinez calling me. When we got up to ground level, they're bulldozing everything away, parting the seas of all this debris so we could escape. Every uniform yelling at us, "Run, run, run, don't stop!" I get across the street, I'm in front of St. Paul's Chapel. I can't help myself. I stop. I turn around. I look at this unbelievable sight. This ticker tape of concrete and steel and bodies. David looked at me. "What are you going to do, man?" I said. "I have no clue, David." I came up on a train. I wanted to go back on the train, get back to Philly, take the rental car I had in Philly, drive it to the airport, fly back to Columbus where I live. This was my plan. I said, "I don't think that's going to happen." He said, "I think you're right. That's probably not going to happen. Why don't you come with me to my place?" I said, "Okay, great. Sounds like a plan. Where do you live?" "Upper West Side, 108th Street. I went, "Whoa, that's a long way." He said, "You got a better plan?" I said, "No, I don't. You're right. I don't have a better plan. I'll go with you. We'll figure out what in the name of God is going on." We started making our way north. We were only 9 minutes north of 2 World Trade Center, the building we'd just been in. We came across a commercial laundry, doors thrown wide open, the all-news radio station blaring out that this was a deliberate terrorist attack. But it was the next couple of sounds that are the sounds I hear. Anybody who was there hears, every single day. First thing in the morning, last thing at night, unmistakable sound of twisting steel, crumbling concrete coming to the ground. And even more hauntingly, the sound of tens of thousands of people on the streets of New York, all screaming the same blood-curdling scream, all at the same time. We were very fortunate that David had a friend in the Tribeca section of the city where we were at that time. When we got into Sarah's apartment, she had other people who'd taken flight from the event in her place. Her husband, ironically, was stuck in Columbus, which is where I wanted to go. So we sat and we watched, and we sat and we watched. About 5 hours into the event, Mayor Giuliani got on the TV. It was kind of amazing. He was the right guy at the right time for that circumstance. He looked through the lens of the television and basically said, "New York, this has been a tough day. We're going to get through this. We're going to survive. We're going to recover. And I know all of you just want to get home." If you've seen the pictures, you see people walking across the George Washington Bridge into New Jersey, out on the Long Island Railroad tracks to get to Long Island. People just wanted to get away, and he knew that. He emphasized it again. "I know you just want to get home. We believe we have enough confidence in our first responders, in our security that we've built up, and we're going to reopen the subways." Reopen the subways. My God, what a gutsy thing to do. What a decision to make. David looked at me. I looked at him, and he said, "Come on, we're going." I said, "Where are we going?" We got about 2 stops up, which was 34th Street, Penn Station. The way I got here today, pretty eerie. He looked at me. I looked at him. He knew I wanted to get out of New York, no matter what it took. Without saying a word, we both got out of that subway car, got into Penn Station, looking like a couple of tourists not knowing where we're going. We're walking through this crowded train station, and there's this woman from Amtrak. In her finest New York accent, she waves her finger at me. "Where are you going, honey?" I said. "I want to get to Philadelphia." She says, "Great, there's a train down here about to leave." I reached into my suit coat pocket. I had a round-trip ticket. She looked at me and said, "Are you kidding me? We're not collecting tickets today." Some things never change in New York. I think that woman's still there at Penn Station, and she'd yell at me today too. I get down on that train. I come out of the tunnel underneath the Hudson River, get back onto the Jersey side, look back at what once was the greatest skyline in all the world, now relegated to a gray and black cloud. Sad. Really sad. I'm on this train for about 70 minutes, and there are people sitting and standing, crowded, and not a word was spoken. There were no words to say. 13-hour trip back to Westerville, Ohio, the suburb of Columbus where I lived at that time. Did it in 11 and a half hours. Don't tell the cops. I just wanted to get home. I just wanted to get home. Calling people left and right on my cell phone, calling my wife all the time. I was about 10, 15 minutes away from home, and I called her for the umpteenth time. I said, "I'm almost there, 10, 15 minutes away." She went, "Okay." I said, "Oh." Hesitation. "Something happening?" She said, "Well, yeah, they decided to have a mass at St. Mary's." And I stopped her right before she finished the whole sentence and said, "You know what? A good day to go to church. I'll meet you there." I was more afraid the moment I opened the back doors to that church, seeing these hundreds of pairs of eyes all staring back at me, knowing where I'd been. Looked over to the right, to the pew where we always sit. Catholics, we always sit in the same pew. There's my wife, a couple of my kids, some of my friends, I wish my wife was here today. She's prettier than me, nicer than me. You'd love her. She's a talkative person, but she's not demonstrative. She would never do any of this. That's what made it doubly amazing when I looked over to the right to see her jump over the back of that pew, run to the back of the church, give me the greatest hug and kiss a man could ever want. It was at that moment that I knew I was home. I was home. There were 54 of us in that meeting. 7 of us survived. 47 perished that day. Almost all of them have yet to be identified. They're still working on identification at the World Trade Center, the mausoleum that's at the memorial, and the museum. They have the smallest bits of DNA that they can use to try to continue to bring some people home. I hope they can do that someday for some of my friends who were lost that day. It's tough. The woman who ran our meeting, who was calling me at the Sky Lobby level, nobody who went to the Sky Lobby made it out. When the plane went through the building, the elevator cables were just cut. Those elevators went straight to the ground. Nobody survived. She left behind a husband and 2 boys who are grown men now. That's just one person who lived her life so strongly. She was a woman at the top of the insurance game at a time when this wasn't happening. She'd broken through the glass ceiling, and to see her life taken in that way, so sad. I didn't think to ask her to come with me. Guess I should have. Those boys would have a mom. Her husband would have a spouse. But as a survivor, you can't live that, because if you do, you won't survive. I've had 2 nightmares since this all occurred. Janet was in both of them. In both of those dreams, Janet was standing at the end of my bed saying, "It's all right, Matthew. It's okay, Matthew." And I've got to keep telling this story.